Well, President Trump says other nations, in conjunction with the U.S., will now send warships to the Strait of Hormuz to keep oil flowing. This after a new video shared overnight shows U.S. forces executing a large-scale strike on Karg Island, a critical export hub for Iran's oil. Our chief international correspondent, Steve Harrigan, is live on the Armenia-Iran border with much more on this conflict. Hi, Steve.
Aisha, that key oil hub for Iran, Karg Island, just 16 miles off the coast of Iran, was pounded by U.S. warships yesterday and by planes. Several hours of poundings. President Trump emphasizing that the targets hit overnight were strictly military. But the president also cautioned that if Iran doesn't play ball, those targets could expand incrementally over time. The president posting many countries, especially those who are affected by Iran's attempted closure of the Hormuz Strait, will be sending warships in conjunction with the United States of America to keep the strait open and safe. Of course, Iran depends on that island for about 90% of its oil exports. That's the money that keeps the war machine going in Iran, also keeps the government afloat as well. And finally, the United States also announcing more than 2,000 Marines will be deployed in this region. They'll be coming from the Pacific. Exactly where they will be deployed, what their mission is, not made public yet. Aisha, back to you.
Okay, Steve Harrigan, live for us. Steve, thank you very much. For more, let's bring in former Defense Secretary Mark Esper. Secretary, great to have you on this program. I want to get to that breaking news right off the top here. The president announcing on Truth Social that many countries, especially those who are affected by Iran's attempted closure of the Hormuz Strait, will be sending warships in conjunction with the United States of America to keep the strait open and safe. Your reaction to that, sir?
Yeah, good morning. First of all, look, I think it's a great move. I think the more we can internationalize this issue, the better. Needless to say, many countries, more so than the United States, in fact, and specifically Asia, are affected by the cutoff of oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz than the United States is. And secondly, many other countries, of course, are impacted by it beyond just us. So I think the more we can internationalize it is very helpful. It also adds diplomatic heft to what we're doing and legitimacy to what we're doing with regard to keeping the strait open. And thirdly, it puts more capability into the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, we certainly have the most capable Navy in the world, but there's a limit to how many destroyers we can put into the strait at one time. And adding destroyers, escorts from other countries would be very helpful going forward. So I think all around, it's a great move.
When you couple that with what just happened overnight on Karg Island, which is where Iran processes most of its crude oil, it's a big hit. And a big win for the U.S. When you couple that with what just happened there, we are making major advances with Iran. You've said before, though, that Iran has more endurance. I find that very interesting. Do these things now change your calculus on that?
Well, that headline, if you will, was a little bit misleading. Look, at the end of the day, war is a contest of wills between two countries. And at this point in time, it seems to me as if the Iranians have become more emboldened, right? Now that they've survived the brunt of our attacks and strikes, they've had a successful transition. There seems to be little fracturing within the government, within institutions. And now they're making claims, demands on what a post-conflict would look like. They're talking about reparations. They're talking about the United States leaving the region. And meanwhile, we are talking more and more about the price of oil and what it means for the November elections. And look, we all know, too, that writ large, democracies are more subject to public opinion than autocracies are, and this is a brutal autocracy. So my concern has always been in the contest of wills, particularly when you start out in a situation where, you know, a majority of the American people are not behind this yet, that they may have the ability to hold out longer than we can to achieve their war aims. And of course, the fact is, if they lose, the regime could well fall. So I think because of those dynamics right now, that's the case. And this move on Karg Island sends a signal, at least one thing, that we're willing to strike Karg Island. Secondly, though, it may be a softening up of the target so that we try and seize it with ground forces.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. There are reports that the Trump administration is weighing whether or not to send in ground troops, at least a small contingency of folks to go in and secure these nuclear sites that we haven't been able to perhaps get through just dropping bombs. What do you think about that? Do you think that's smart to send in, special forces?
Well, it depends on the purpose that you're trying to achieve, of course, the end state. I think obviously would be less complicated and less dangerous than trying to fly into the interior of Iran and seize nuclear material or secure a site like Isfahan or Fordow. Kharg Island is way up in the north of the strait, so far away removed from the actual bend in the Strait of Hormuz itself. But that said, it's only 100, 120 miles from Kuwait, Bahrain, places like that, easily reachable by helicopter. You could seize it, occupy it, and that way you could control the throttle by which the Iranian economy thrives through the distribution of oil. And that would put our grip around their neck in terms of their economy and the economy's ability to prop up their war efforts. So it could very well be a good move. It won't be without risk and danger, but it's certainly doable, and more so, of course, than putting troops into the middle of Iran.
If I'm correct, I believe that you've suggested that the U.S. at some point needs to restart dialogue with Iran, that potentially that is the way to end this conflict. Here's Iran's UN ambassador on why they kept enriching their uranium. Listen here.
Iran's decision to increase the level of enrichment was taken solely in response to the violation of commitment by the United States and European countries.
I think the question has always been with Iran, Secretary Esper, how do we trust them? How do we trust that whatever agreement we come to with them, that they will honor that they will stop enriching?
No, we never trust them. That's why I supported President Trump getting out of the JCPOA in 2018, 2017. So, look, I'm in favor of regime change, but it doesn't look at this point in time that the Iranian people are ready to rise up and overturn the regime. And of course, it's very hard to do externally. You need to put a lot of ground troops on the ground. And so my view was, at this point, the Pentagon is making a lot of headway in terms of the core objectives of the military, and that is destroying the drone and ballistic missile capabilities and production, destroying the Navy, degrading the nuclear. My point with regard to the negotiations was to say this could be a win for President Trump if, at the end of the day, we not just accomplish the military objectives, but we compel Iran to allow nuclear inspectors back in on the ground, unfettered access to all the sites, cameras back up, and we demand that they overturn or turn over the 900 pounds of enriched uranium that could make, we think, somewhere to 10 to 12 atomic bombs. That gets turned over to an international, some country or whatever the case may be. But to me, that's a win, because that's presumably why we started this 14 days ago, because Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff said they weren't being serious at the negotiation table. So, look, you can't trust the Iranians. It's time for this 47-year-old terrorist regime to end. But if we can't get there now, then we definitely got to make sure that we have some higher degree of confidence through inspectors on the ground that they are not rebuilding their nuclear capabilities and aspirations.
All right. Well, a lot of moving parts on this Saturday morning, a lot of breaking news. Secretary Esper, we are so grateful for you joining us and giving us your insight. Great to have you on.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.